Since you clicked on this video, I bet you have been looking for an easy way to digitize images and you haven't found one. I was looking for the same thing at the beginning of the year, and all I was finding was expensive software to buy up front and Inkstitch, which is a free open source software, which is great. It's awesome, very capable, but it is more complex than what I need. So I decided to solve this problem myself. I've spent the last 8 months or so working on Inkstitch, which is a website which streamlines the process of taking an image or illustration and digitizing it into an embroidery file. This website certainly isn't a replacement for the professional software that's out there, the expensive paid software or Inkstitch, but it does provide a very user-friendly, accessible route to create your own embroidery files from an existing image or illustration. So to get started, let's go to click-stitch.com, and then you'll either need to create an account or get signed in if you already have one. This is what the main app looks like when you start. This is the digitize area in the nav bar here, or if you're on the home page, you can also click this orange digitize button. We need to upload our file. And this first step is background removal. If you have a subject you want to have isolated from the background, you can use this tool, and it will do its best to remove the background from your image. In this case, I just want to use the full image, so we will just use that, but this will show you what it does on the right. So we'll click Use Original Image. And this next step is selecting our colors. These are going to be the different thread colors that we use. So we just use our mouse over the image here and select our different colors. So we have the blue, dark blue, and you can zoom in here to make it easier to pick these colors. And the yellow. If you add a color on accident, you can click the X here and that'll remove it. On the right, this preview image shows what it looks like with the reduced colors. So right now you see there's no yellow in the eyes. So when we add that color back, it updates over here and we have the yellow now. So once we're happy with our colors, we get to our dimensions. This will be the dimension of the output file for the embroidery machine. And here you set either the width or the height, and it will adjust the other value accordingly. And if you don't want to use inches, you can use millimeters here as well. This setting here at the bottom, we will discuss later. So we're good on this page, so we'll hit continue. At the top, we select our file type. I need a PES for my machine, so we'll leave it on that. And here on the image, as we move our mouse over it, you might see that shapes are being outlined. And if you click on a shape, it highlights it and gives us options here on the right. We'll dive into these more on our next conversion, but just wanted to show that to you real quick. But for this file, we are going to keep things really simple and just add a satin border around it. So when I click that button, it adds this border, which you can see here. And we have our color selection here. It defaults to black. I want it to be the same dark blue as our tiger. So I click that from our quick select palette here, and that updates it. We can also change the size, and the border size changes to help us visualize what it'll look like. So we'll set that at 3, and we'll click this process and preview. The site is in a beta right now, and just to ensure that we have server capacity for multiple users, we have a token system. So when you create an account, you'll get 3 tokens, and each day you can come back to your account page and claim 3 more. So we want to move forward, so we'll use the 1 token and generate, and this will work and process that file for us. This step can take 20-30 seconds or up to a handful of minutes, depending on the size and complexity of the design. Once it loads, we get a preview where we can see the stitch path. You can see like the underlay stitches it's creating, satin stitches, and so on. And we can download the file here. And at the bottom, we have a feedback section. While it's in beta, I'm really excited to hear any suggestions or feedbacks or bugs you guys run into. So I would love to hear from you here. And here I will show you what this looks like being embroidered on my machine, so you can get a sense of what it can output. All right, let's look at some more of our features on this website by doing a different design. So we will browse for a file, and we will use this image of a bird on a stick. So in this case, I do want this background removed. So we will click this button here and see what it does. Okay, that one came out pretty good. So we will use that image. And again, we'll go in and select our colors. All right, and as you are selecting colors, if you zoom in on the preview here on the right, depending on your image, you might notice, these tiny specks, which would not embroider well. So that is where this minimum fill shape size value comes in. So it's going to look for small sections of color that are larger than 2.5 millimeters in either height or width dimension. Otherwise, it will just merge it with the next nearest color. So all these little blue dots right here, for example, would turn into the darker blue, just so you know kind of what's going on here and what to expect. I think this is looking pretty good in the preview here. I'm happy with those colors. I am happy with this size as well. So we will hit continue and see what happens. Okay, and here we are. This certainly simplified the image down a bit, but it is doing that to ensure that it will embroider well. If you wanted more detail, you could go back by clicking this button here at the bottom, and you can tweak things. So you could get more detail by either making your image larger or by reducing your minimum fill shape size. Both of those are options, and you'll just need to play with things to figure out what works best in your specific scenario. I am going to keep things the same for this example. I am going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I'm going to just remove this little shape here, which doesn't really look like it belongs. So you can select these shapes just by clicking on them. And I am going to just delete that shape. I'll make sure we meant to do that, and away it goes. I don't think I need to delete any more shapes, but I do want to make this stick a uniform color here. So we are going to make it all black, and we are going to do that by selecting all of these shapes here. And you can do that by holding Shift and click. Hold Shift, click, hold Shift, click, until you've selected everything you want to merge together. And I'm going to merge this shape here as well. We'll include that one too. So now we've got all those. We're going to change the color to black. And as it stands right now with these individual shapes, you can see there's still these border lines. It would treat each of these as like a separate stitch entity. So it would stitch it out, cut it, move to the next one. But we want to treat this as a uniform shape, so we got to merge it together. And we can do that with this button right here, merge shapes into one. We click that, and there we go. So now that is all just one shape, which is great. Here on this side, I'm going to do the same thing and merge those two. In addition to holding Shift and clicking each shape, you can hold Shift, click, and drag to draw a box around the shapes you want to include. So we will make those the black color, merge them together, and there we go. Now I want to tweak some stitch settings on these blues. I want to change the stitch direction so it kind of follows the pattern that the feathers would on this bird. So again, I will hold Shift, click, and select a few of these, and I want this blue here as well. Okay, so now they're all highlighted, so we can do an edit on all of those shapes at the same time. So we will use the stitch direction wheel here, so you can click and drag, and of course in the preview you'll see those lines changing direction. And I kind of just want it to go kind of straight down the bird's back, like that. You could also type out the angle if you knew that or had something specific in mind. I don't want to make any changes to this in my example here, but if you wanted to make any tweaks to the max stitch length or the row spacing, those values are here, of course. Row spacing is kind of the density, the distance between vertical rows, and match stitch length is just the max length that a stitch will go before it creates another stitch. And you can also create satin borders or running stitch borders around individual shapes. So those are options as well for you there. So the last thing I want to do is add a satin border that goes around the bird, but not the stick. So we will select all the shapes in a bird. Like that. We missed this top one. Hold Shift, click, and that's selected. So we can create an outline satin stitch here with this blue button on the right. We'll click that, and you'll see the outline here. And we get our stitch settings here on the right. Again, we can adjust our width here and it'll show how wide that would look in the preview. So here I am happy, so we will click process and preview. We'll use a token and we will see what it looks like after it processes. Okay, there it is. It is ready, so we can download it and put it on our machine and get going. I wanted to show a quick example of using a PNG with transparency. So I want to search for a flower image, and as one of my filters, I searched for transparent, and this gave me a bunch of results, all with transparency. So I was scrolling down and I found this, which I liked. So I am just going to click and drag this into our app here, and you'll see we don't have any background. We don't need to use this background removal, so we'll use this original image. And here we are back at the color selection. So we'll just go through and pick out some colors. Here, just because there's not too much of this color coming through, I think I'm going to change that to match this darker pink color, or the medium pink color. So I'm just going to do that really quick. Okay, there's the design. I am going to download it and embroider. So you will see the results here in a sec. Thanks for checking this video out and seeing what Inkstitch can do. If you're watching this shortly after the video's upload, it is currently in a beta period, as I mentioned before. This means some things may break, they may not work right, and you might find bugs. If you do, please let me know with the feedback. I will work to fix things and implement new features as fast as possible. After the beta, the site will move to a paid service, but my number one goal is to keep the price very low and accessible for everyone, so we're looking at less than $1 per design and or a subscription model where it is just several dollars a month. Pricing isn't set yet, so if you have feedback on that front, please let me know. Again, thank you for checking this video out and seeing what Inkstitch has to offer.